In this video, we're taking an in-depth look at the Canon EOS R8. What are the pros, what are the cons, and is this camera right for you? Let's hop right into this review. So the Canon EOS R8 was released in April of 2023, so this thing is still new and it's still shiny. I had the opportunity to play with the R8 for about a week. I tested the photo quality, the video quality, and basically how it feels in my hand. How easy or how difficult was it to use? Now the R8 is essentially like the baby brother to Canon's R6 Mark II, which is a pretty darn powerful camera for around $2,000. Now the R8, lacking some of those R6 II features, comes in at right around $1,200 to $1,300 US at the making of this video. So let's take a look and deep dive into some of the pros and the cons, and then ultimately decide, who is this camera for? Is it for you? I'll leave that decision up to you. So let's quickly skim over some tech specs about the R8. It has a full frame 24.2 megapixel sensor, takes some great images. Now when it comes to autofocus, the R8 has 1,053 autofocus points, and it borrows the dual pixel autofocus system from the R6 Mark II. So you are getting that advantage of a darn good autofocus system. When it comes to video, the Canon R8 can record up to 4K 60 frames per second. It also has the option of 24 and 30 frames per second. And when you're recording 1080, you can get up to 180 frames per second for that super silky slow-mo. Now just know that with the 4K mode, you will be limited to about a 2-ish hour record time. Now on the back of the R8, you do have an articulating touchscreen. It's 3 inches. The quality is nothing to brag about. Same thing about the OLED viewfinder. Pretty low resolution, so sometimes if you have bad eyes like me, it's a little difficult to see what you're doing. Now the R8 is also super lightweight. It weighs just about a pound, which is roughly 400-ish grams, and it comes in at right around $1,300 US. Also, it's weather sealed. So what are some of the pros about the R8? What do I love about this camera? First of all, the autofocus is snappy. It does a fantastic job at subject tracking. It tracks your eye, it tracks your head. There are tons of other videos that show examples of this, but I had such a fun time with the autofocus tracking and the whole autofocus system. Everything was pretty darn snappy. Now, as I said earlier, the autofocus system and the sensor and the processor is borrowed from the Canon R6 Mark II. So you're getting that goodness of a $2,000 camera put into a $1,300 camera. Needless to say, I was highly impressed by the autofocus system. It locked on and followed everything I needed it to. And honestly, the autofocus is way more than what I personally need it for. Now, another thing I love about the R8 is how lightweight it is. If you want a run and gun camera, something for street photography, something for quick portraits, something for travel that can easily fit in a small backpack, is lightweight. It is a fairly compact system if you throw on a little 50mm lens, a nifty 50, and travel with it. It would be a great travel companion for you if you're looking for a small, lightweight, compact, everyday camera. Now, in addition to all that, you may know that Canon has had some overheating issues with this camera, and I can say from experience, I have not had any overheating issues, and I think all of those issues have been solved with the Canon R8. So what are some of the cons of the R8? Well, it's not the R6 Mark II. With that lower price point, you are going to lose some of those more professional features. One of those is the little joystick on the back where you can usually use to get your autofocus. Now, the issue that I had is every time I want to change focus points, I don't use tracking all the time. I use focus points a lot. I'll usually set a focus point and then move it around, adjust my camera, adjust my composition, and just leave that focus point where it is so I'm in control. One of the issues I had was because there was no joystick in my right hand, I would continually have to bring the camera down from my face, stop what I was doing, stop capturing the moment, and tap on the LCD screen to reacquire a focus point. The other issue, as you can see from some of the photo and video that I shot, I was in the cold and I kept having to take off my glove and I kept having to change the focus points. And after a while, my finger got really cold and I was having issues with the touchscreen and it noticing my cold finger because it was so darn cold. The touchscreen just wouldn't pick up my finger. So that is a con of the R8. Like I said, it's like the R6 Mark II, but you are missing some pretty critical features that have been, well, neutered out of this camera. Another thing we're missing in the R8 is no IBIS system, no in-body sensor stabilization. And that's something I've kind of grown accustomed to and maybe taken for granted, but it is something that we lose when we come down massively in that price point for a very affordable $1,200 to $1,300 camera. We lose in-body stabilization. So when you're taking photos, sometimes you have to crank up that shutter just a little bit more to get a clean photo, and you'll notice some extra jitters in your video and a little bit of extra shake that, like I said, I may have taken for granted in, for example, my Z6 or my GH6. Another thing that took me a little bit to notice was the tiny battery with the R8. Now, I've heard a lot of other people complain about the battery life. I don't think it was too terrible. I had 2 batteries and I used maybe the equivalent of 3 or 4 batteries worth when I was shooting on and off. If you are shooting full time, I would stock up on batteries. They are some tiny little batteries, not like the big chunky Canon batteries that you may be used to, so you will burn through those pretty quickly. Once you burn through a battery, you're done. You need to put in that second one or else you are losing moments. Now, the last thing I'll mention is the 6K to 4K downsampling when it comes to video. The R8 does use the whole video sensor when it comes to video capturing. When you're capturing 4K, however, it does downsample from 6K down to 4K. Now, that leads to some pretty sharp looking videos. The only con to this is, let's say you're capturing a subject that may have a pattern on their shirt, like plaid, or maybe power lines. You'll start to see some weird artifacting potentially in your video footage, and it can get distracting. So what are my thoughts on the Canon R8? First of all, I think this is a great run and gun camera for intermediate photographers or videographers, especially someone who likes to do a little bit of both. Maybe you're a travel photographer, maybe you like doing a little bit of run and gun street photography, maybe you're just getting into filmmaking. This is a pretty darn good camera for you. If you're doing portraits, maybe you're just starting your own portrait business, the autofocus is fantastic, and I love the subject tracking. I think the autofocus in this is truly revolutionary, and like I said before, you're getting that R6 Mark II autofocus system, which is borrowed from a $2,000 camera. With all that being said, you're getting a ton of features like the sensor from the R6 Mark II, but you're also losing some features coming down in that price point, and that is because this is now a more affordable camera. Canon has taken away some of those professional features. So for a camera sitting around $1,300, I think you're getting a great deal on the Canon R8. Now, personally, am I going to purchase one? I don't think so. It's not for someone that potentially has a flagship camera, maybe a D5, a D6, maybe you have a higher end Sony, a higher end Nikon, a Z8, a Z9. It would be a little bit of a step down for a professional photographer with a flagship or a professional body already. Now, if you're more of an intermediate photographer or a beginner looking for a great second camera body, you're looking to upgrade from a lower end camera body, the Canon R8 is great. It would be great for travel photography and videography, great for run and gun, lightweight shooting. It's small, it's compact, it can just about fit in your pocket. It's a affordable camera for a lot of photographers out there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope there was a lot of information in here and I can help you make an informed decision about your next camera purchase. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And until next time, get out and go shoot.